Hello please! Wolfie for the win again, here with my second episode of Mindgamer Titanfall. It's been a while since the first one, and I've put a lot of hours into this game since then. Hopefully all that game time will have translated into a bunch of cool new tricks and mind games that I'll be able to pass on to you throughout this episode. As always, this will be a narrated first-person view of a complete Titanfall match. I will be describing the thought processes behind many of the decisions that I make, the reasoning behind some of the strategies and tactics that I use, and an analysis of the mistakes that I make, and ways that you can avoid such mistakes if you're in a similar situation. Today we'll be playing hardpoint domination on Rise, which, in my opinion, despite its large size, is one of the fastest and most mobility-oriented maps in the game. This is the score at the end of the round. You can see it was a very close fight. This game came down to the wire. Luckily for me, my team pulled through, and we were able to clutch it out.
This is a hardpoint mission.
I get put into a game already in progress, and though it hasn't been going on for long, I can tell that we're already in for a fight. The enemy has already captured B and C, whereas my team hasn't even captured the point closest to its spawn yet. The enemy is probably stopping us from taking it. I go low because I see my teammate go high, to cover all the options. Now that A is taken, my next goal is to capture a second point so that we have a majority. What I'm thinking is that the game tends to spawn enemies near where the action's going to be. In this case, it would be between B and A, so enemies spawn near B and then attack towards A. If I bypass B by running along the top of the map and then go cap C, I should expect very little resistance. Don't forget to use the ziplines on this map. They'll take you up high where the walls are closer together, and then you can wall run to, well, basically anywhere you want. As I enter the building for C, I fail to notice a mine in the doorway, and I trip it. Now, when you get hit by a mine, there's two things you want to do right away. First is to activate Stim. This will kickstart your health regen so you don't die from the next bullet that you catch, and the speed boost is nice in case you need to run away from any threats. Second, you're going to want to leave the immediate area. Whoever put the mine there knows that you tripped it, and they're going to be around soon to finish you off.
I've lost the connection. Get closer to the terminal.
Whenever you're capturing a hardpoint, it is very important to look at the indicator at the top. You can basically use it as a point-wide scanner for enemies. Instead of running around trying to cover all the entrances, leaving you open to flanking, you can sit in a nice safe corner and watch for the indicator to turn to contested. That means someone else is in the room with you. I decide to actually leave the building and then come back in, because hardpoints in this game have so many entrances that the attacker usually has the advantage. My tactic pays off as I see the enemy run to hide in a corner, unaware of where I'm coming from. I trade my pistol out for his car SMG because it's much more effective than my carbine indoors. I try to look for some enemies through the grating, but I don't see any. We've taken C, but we still don't have 2 points yet. I hear the announcer say,
Just lost Alpha.
and that lets me know that the enemy is most likely at A, so B is the better target. While the point itself is indoors, it's got windows all around, so I decide to attack from above. This little stairwell here is the perfect point from which to cap B. If you turn to angle your sight right, you can watch the window and the doorway, the two places that you're exposed from, and if you watch the little icon at the top, you'll know if any enemy comes in through any other entrance. For some reason, nobody seems to come down the stairwell like I did, so you don't really have to worry about that. Now that we have 2 points, the best thing to do is defend. It's greedy to go for all 3, because you'll inevitably leave one of your other 2 points open to capture. However, like I said before, it's really hard to defend a point from the inside, because of all the routes the enemy can take to attack. Instead, I decide to be a little bit more proactive, and cut off the enemy as they leave their base. As I jump up over this wall, I sense a little bit of conspicuous movement behind that building. It looks like a pilot is running behind it, and so I set my crosshair on the other side and wait for him to show up. I stim to boost my health. I do this every time I get into a firefight, and in this case, it saves my life. I actually play really defensively while waiting for my Titan to drop. If I die now, I can't guarantee that I'll get back to my Titan before someone tries to kill it. Auto Titans are pretty dumb, and they're pretty easy to kill without a pilot nearby. I see on the minimap that my teammate is trying to cap A, so I go there to help. He dies, and I am having trouble getting to his killer with my weapons. I shoot a cluster missile at the ground to get him with a splash, but it doesn't happen. What I actually could have done here is just shot the cluster missile straight through the mesh. For some reason, the buildings on this map have this sort of grating on them that doesn't block cluster missiles. Now, while I could have stepped out of my Titan here to cap A, that would have been pretty dumb actually. There's a lot of enemies around here, and if I had died, I would have left my Titan undefended. Instead, I decided to just hang around the general area, be a threat that the enemy has to deal with before they can go on to cap our other hardpoints. Despite recent nerfs to its clip size, the 40mm cannon is still by far the best Titan weapon. It actually has perfect accuracy when zoomed in, so whenever you use it, try to fire it zoomed if you can. Looks like the enemy has taken C, but luckily for me I'm in a position to counter cap one of their points. I just need to drive the enemy Titans out of here first, so I can be safe. I activate my double damage core ability, and I get to work. As soon as I drive off the last enemy Titan, I get out. Here's a neat little trick. If you crouch in your Titan before disembarking, the animation to get out is actually shorter. Here's a quick example clip. It might not look like much, but it can make a big difference. Again, as I cap the hardpoint, I watch the two entrances as well as the capture icon at the top of my screen. I hear Sidewinder shots and I see the enemy appear on the minimap. Now I'd like to take him out, but he's positioned himself to just barely be out of the view as long as I'm standing in the capture zone. I don't want to leave the capture zone, so I try to make a mental note of where he is so I can kill him after. In hindsight, I probably should have popped out to finish him off and then gone back to capping the point. The game moves very quickly, and any advantages you might have are fleeting at best. Luckily, he decides to stick around. I throw an arc grenade to the side to cover his retreat, and then I jump in. I catch him in the middle of a reload, so even though I can't aim for my life, I still get the kill. Setting my Titan to follow mode lets me get into it sooner. After I hop into my Titan, I hear this. That is the sound of a pilot rodeoing you, and if you don't see a teammate indicator on your minimap, it's an enemy pilot. If you don't have electric smoke, the easiest way to deal with enemy rodeoers is to shoot a cluster missile at a wall, back up into it, and then look up. Even if the enemy pilot tries to jump off, he'll get stuck, and it's a guaranteed kill. Sure, you'll take some damage, but it's infinitely preferable to jumping out and risking getting killed. I make a huge mistake here though, one that eventually leads to my death. I actually get really impatient and I run out of my own cluster missile before it's killed my rodeoer. And I turn around to see another enemy pilot trying to rodeo me and his teammate up on the walkway raining down mag launcher shots. I actually handled this next part pretty terribly. If you're being rodeoed but there are other enemies around, you should prioritize the other enemies. Sure, the rodeo will kill you, but it'll kill you eventually, whereas if you get out to try and stop the rodeo, the other people will kill you quickly. If I could go back and do this again, this is what I would do. I would Titan punch this dude right here, and then I would use my remaining dash to get as far away as possible from the guy shooting the mag launcher. Only then would I get out and shoot the guy off my Titan's back. Instead, I get out right away, crouching first to give the enemy less time to react to the sound of my hatch opening, and throw 2 quick arc grenades around my Titan. This manages to kill the 2 enemies closest to me, but I still have that mag launcher guy to deal with. I put a few shots into him, but then he backs out. By this time, I stalled long enough to allow the first guy I killed to actually respawn and gun me down. I spawn back in and I do a quick scan of where I'm needed. We're taking back B, but we're losing C, so I'll go there. I hear HMG shots, and I mistake my teammate for an enemy and waste a few bullets. If I'd been looking at my minimap, I could have avoided that mistake. I run towards C. A rooftop approach probably would have been safer, since it would be less exposed to enemy fire. I toss my arc grenades at the enemy Titan to help take it down, and then I run inside. Arc grenades are a really great tool. While they don't have the murder potential of the satchel charges, they have really good utility. Not only do they have a large splash radius and do good damage, they also blind enemy pilots and Titans. They also add this really cool EMP effect to enemy pilots that make them snap and crackle as they're blinded, and you can actually use this as an audio cue to hunt them down, as I'll show you later on in this video. As I cap C, you should notice that I always run to a corner and position my field of view to cover as many entrances as possible. This is to maximize how fast I can react to a new threat entering the point. I check the minimap again and I see an enemy Titan and an enemy pilot outside of C, and I try to watch them through the grate. I step outside to take some pot shots at the enemy Titan, but I am very careful to only reveal myself in between the cooldown from shots of his railgun. Fighting Titans as a pilot is a very tricky proposition because they have so many options to kill you quickly. My advice is generally don't do it, unless they're distracted, or if they only have a few slivers of HP left. We need to capture another point, so for some reason I decided to go for B. This is a mistake. Look at all these enemies headed for C. The moment they see that B is being captured, they can just turn around and crush me. I can't take on the enemy team by myself, no matter how good I am, so A would have been the better choice here. I run down my favorite stairwell and I watch the capture indicator. It says contested, so I step down to clear it out, and that's when I notice an enemy on my minimap outside of the point. He knows that I'm capturing the point, because he can see it on his screen. But I know that he knows that I'm capturing the point, and I know that he's going to take the nearest entrance to B in order to stop the cap. And that would be this doorway right here. Here I make a major mistake. Instead of retreating to the stairwell of safety where I'm sheltered from shots from the outside and can watch the doorway that I know he's going to go through, I instead run up to the doorway myself and try to shoot him through it. My reasoning for doing this is as follows. When the enemy is running towards the capture point, all he's really thinking about is how to best do that. He's not really alert and looking for enemies like he would be once he's inside. By meeting him as he's running towards the point instead of while he's already in it, I hope to catch him off guard and get an easier kill. However, it doesn't really work out that way. Not only do the concrete barriers end up blocking about half my shots, grenade indicators appear behind me and I'm forced to run outside lest I be blown up. At the same time, I panic reload, which is never really a good thing. Turns out the grenade indicators were triple set shots, which cut off my retreat inside before blowing me up. Takeaway lesson? When in the middle of enemy territory and surrounded by titans, stay inside. I spawn in a titan and see that we still only hold one hardpoint. We're still losing this match, and we need to take another one right away if we want to have any chance of catching up. Here I have the option of helping my team in the battle for B or sneaking past while my enemy is distracted and stealth capping A again. In this case, B is actually the better option, because you want to have two capture points that are close to each other. This establishes a single unified front where you can always look to meet your enemy. In contrast, if you take 2 points that are separated by an enemy point, then you have to defend the enemy from going in 2 directions, which is much harder. The game is more than halfway over, and we're still behind, so I hop out of my Titan to help my teammates capture the point faster. This is a big mistake. While it is important to capture hardpoints, what's more important is to actually hold them. Titans can't do the former, but they are kings of the latter. By putting my Titan into AI mode, I've basically given it up as a free kill to this enemy Titan. And by doing so, I sacrificed my ability to hold the hardpoint after capping it. I toss a few arc grenades to try and blind the enemy Titan and buy my own Titan some more time, but it's ultimately futile. The moment I get in my Titan, it's doomed, and I'm forced to eject before I get executed. As I float up into the air, I take this moment to think about my next step. Without a Titan, there's not much I could do to help defend B, but A looks pretty ripe for the picking. If I attack there and the enemy doesn't respond, then it's a free capture point, and if I attack there and the enemy does respond, then they'll be forced to pull away from B and C. When you're trying to cap and you don't know where the enemy is going to come from, it's important that you use both vision and sound to your advantage. If you look on the minimap, there's nobody around. No enemy minions, and no teammates. However, I hear this.
Progress.
Here, let me repeat it for you.
Progress. Progress.
It's the sound of footsteps on sand, which means a pilot is nearby. I'm able to quickly gun him down because I already know he's coming.
Almost there. Securing hardpoint.
Again, I closely watch the capture indicator as I patrol around the point, and the moment it turns into contested, I jump out and throw an arc grenade back in to blind my attacker.
Charlie is under attack.
I listen very carefully for that crackle I told you about earlier, which sounds like this. That crackle tells me he's somewhere in this direction, and sure enough, there he is. I tried to toss a second arc, but I hit myself instead. I stim to kickstart my health regen, and luckily he doesn't put up much of a fight. As I finish up the cap, I call down my Titan. Remember what I said about playing defensively as your Titan's dropping? This is what happens if you don't do that.
We still need Bravo and Charlie.
Now I'm dead, and my Titan's in the middle of nowhere surrounded by at least 3 enemy pilots. Luckily, I respawn pretty close, and I'm able to get back to it before the dome shield expires. Getting into my Titan will replenish my ammo and ordnance, so I toss my arc grenades first. It kills the enemy inside by blowing up one of his satchels, and I decide to capitalize on the distraction by rushing into the point. While I'm inside, I look out the windows and try and pick off some enemies. Like I said before, it's best to be proactive in your defense instead of waiting for them to come to you. Now that A is secure, I hop in my Titan and move towards the center of the map to engage the enemy. It sounds like there's a lot of fighting going on at B, and I actually see 2 enemies there on my minimap. I try to kill the enemies inside with a cluster missile and some 40mm shots, but then this enemy Titan appears on my screen. He instantly becomes my main target. When prioritizing the targets that you're facing, this is the order that you should go in. First, always kill enemy pilots trying to rodeo you. Then, always go after enemy Titans that are attacking you. Then, go after enemy pilots that are attacking you. And last, are pilots or Titans that are not attacking you. There are several things you can learn just by looking at this Titan. 1, his health is low, so he's already at a disadvantage. 2, he's glowing. See this little sort of aura here? It means that the Titan has activated his core ability. In this case, it's an Atlas, so he's using double damage, which makes him a bit of a threat. And 3rd, he's got the plasma railgun equipped, I think, which, isn't that great, especially when compared to the 40mm. Now here's a cool little mind game you can play. Enemy Titans are most likely to fire their ordnance when they first see you. So whenever you run into an enemy Titan for the first time, throw up your vortex shield for a second. About half the time, you'll catch their rocket salvo or cluster missile in flight. Then you can throw it right back at them, like I do here. You may notice that I've actually dashed away from the enemy Titan here. That is a mistake. Normally, you actually want to do the opposite. If you're about to doom an enemy Titan, you want to get right up in their face. And then as soon as you doom them, you hit the melee key to terminate the pilot. If the enemy doesn't have nuclear ejection or auto-eject, this gets rid of the pilot and the Titan all at once. I don't even bother finishing off the auto-Titan because I need to stop this cap right now. Stim actually saves me in the first firefight, and then I see an enemy run up the stairs. I throw an arc grenade after him, and then I get a hit confirmation. Now, at this point, I should have done one of 2 things. I should have either gone up the stairs and gunned down my impaired enemy, or I should have left the point altogether and looped down around from an unexpected direction. Instead, I stick around to throw a second arc grenade, which gets me blown up by satchel charges planted on the point. If an enemy manages to spot you and get away, the best approach is to disengage and find a completely new angle to attack from. The reason is that now the enemy has the information advantage. They know where you're going to be coming from, but you don't know where they went. By choosing a new angle of attack, you basically reset the playing field. I spawn in and immediately go back to trying to retake B. Now I hear a lot of Titans running around, so I decide to wall run and get on the upper catwalks. As a pilot, height is your main advantage when it comes to fighting Titans. They can't jump, so when you're above them it's a lot harder for you to get stepped on, or punched, or shot, or any of the other ways that a Titan could kill you. I see 2 guys up here with me, but I miss all my shots, and they run into the stairwell of safety. Now, remember what I said before about attacking from an alternate route? Well, in this case, the only alternate route would be go down to inside B and then go up the stairwell of safety, which is, it's suicide. So I do the next best thing. I try to disrupt them before I go in. Now here's a neat little trick. I want to throw an arc grenade in there to, blind them and maybe detonate whatever explosives they have. But this is a pretty tricky angle. I need to bank my arc grenade off the rim of the doorway inside. To do this, I actually aim down the sights of my gun, look at the rim of the doorway, and while holding ADS, I throw my grenade, which will go exactly where I'm aiming. Now that I have control of the stairwell of safety, I sit here and cap. It actually saves me from being blown up by a satchel charge, and learning my lesson from last time, I sit back and let the enemy come to me. Now, in any other game, I'd be content to hold B and A, but if you look at the score, we're still losing, and I'm not sure holding 2 points is enough to bring us back to the lead. And if the enemy caps A, then we're done for. The only way to guarantee a win is to have all 3 points. So I decide to take a really big risk, and I make a mad dash towards C. When moving from one place to another on foot, try to wall run as much as possible. It's much faster than running along the ground, and it also leaves you less exposed to fire.
We just lost hardpoint Alpha. I got nothing. Someone...
I narrowly avoid death by 40mm cannon, and after I wait around a while, I hear the sound of the enemy getting out of his Titan.
Get over there.
I step out of hiding and prepare to gun them down as they come in to try and stop our cap. Now for this next segment, I want you to watch my movement very carefully. Did you notice how, as I was shooting at the enemy, I was actually taking little steps to the left and to the right? This is called stutter stepping, or ADADing, named after the keys you press on the keyboard. What it does is actually make you very difficult to hit, as your head and the rest of your body is moving left and right, while having relatively little effect on your aim. The capture icon for B is slowly winding down, which means it's under attack. If I had more time, I'd hop in my Titan and bring it there, but the game's almost over, and so I need to get there and stop the cap now.
You're approaching Bravo. What's the hostile?
With 2 enemy pilots and a Titan there, however, there's not much I can do besides run interference. But that's fine. My team pulls through and they manage to trade B for A. With 10 points left in the game, we take the lead for the first and only time. But once is all you need.
Take 6 full ground forces. The situation is under our control. Well done.
We're not done yet though. The epilogue is a really interesting mechanic, and it plays differently from the rest of the game. If you have a Titan ready to drop when the epilogue starts, you should actually hold on to it until the ship is about 10 seconds out or so. This minimizes the amount of time the enemy has to try and destroy your Titan before you start firing on their dropship. As long as you're not in the immediate evac zone, I wouldn't worry too much about enemy pilots. They'll be too focused on trying to get to the evac zone and staying alive to bother with trying to kill you. Looking at the scoreboard, there's only me and another teammate alive. With 2 Titans between us, we're gonna have a pretty hard time taking down the dropship, so instead I shift my focus to stopping the remaining 3 enemies from making it to the ship. I see this guy in his Titan, so I do the same thing as before. Vortex shield to catch his opening salvo, and then 40mm shot to the cranium. When I see that his health is low, I dash in while I keep firing. The moment he's doomed, I melee and execute him. One of his teammates gets away, but there's really nothing I could have done about that. Was the sacrifice worth it? He probably doesn't think so. And that's that. 2,675 assault points, 250 defense points, 24 kills, 4 deaths. A really good game overall, I think, but still, far from perfect. I think there's a lot of places that my gameplay can still improve. Most notably the consistency of my wall running and the quality of the decisions that I make. Nonetheless, gaming is a constant learning process, and if you really put your mind to it, you can be getting better all the time. I hope that in these 20+ minutes I've been able to teach you something new and interesting, or failing that, I've kept you entertained. Please, don't hesitate to leave a comment talking about, things that you liked, things that you didn't like, things that you felt weren't explained clearly enough, or things that you felt like I left out. Even though I might not respond to all the comments, I do read every single one of them, and I really value your feedback. Until next time, class dismissed.
For your safety, please stay in the training pod to regain your equilibrium.
Just kidding. Thanks for sticking with me for this full 24 minutes. As a reward, here are some silly bonus clips.
Down.